Hey everybody, welcome to the pre-roll for ELL 164. And having just come from the California Libertarian Convention, I'm going to tell you that you can still get involved. You can influence the way the party's going. Maybe you're a Mises Caucus guy. Maybe you're a Radical Caucus guy. Maybe you're a gal who likes Vermin Supreme in his boot for president. Or maybe you want Hornberger to come out and lead the party in a different direction. One way to do that is to go to lp.org/Lions of Liberty. We get a nice kickback. You get to kick some ass and tell Sawark where he can shove it. Or you can tell him to come over and pet your gerbil. I don't know. It depends on where you sit on Nick. Anyway, lp.org/Lions of Liberty.
Welcome to Electric Libertyland, here on the Lions of Liberty podcast, your weekly shot of culture, comedy, and liberty with your host, Brian McWilliams.
Whoa, Nelly. What's happening out there, my Liberty Pirates? Arg to each and every one of you. I am Brian McWilliams, and this is Electric Libertyland, episode number 164. All the show notes for today's episode can be found at lionsofliberty.com/ELL164. And before I get into the show proper and talk about the Libertarian Convention, talk about Michael Bloomberg, welcome to the jungle, Bloomberg! Welcome to the jungle, bitch! Anyway, before I get into that, I want to tell you about another podcast you guys should check out. Guys that are supporting our show at the highest level that we have right now. Makes me think we need a higher level. But check out Good Morning Liberty, which is hosted by our pals Nate and Charlie, two musicians, two actors, two activists for liberty, both of whom have kind of interesting backgrounds in that they are professional musicians. They've played in bands that have been on MTV. They have themselves been featured in commercials and on television fairly often, which is humorous when you can go and Google people and find them, just like you can Google my stand-up comedy if you'd be so inclined. But anyway, Good Morning Liberty is a everyday podcast. So when you're Jones in between Electric Libertyland and Felony Friday, let's say, you can find them every day of the week, spouting liberty, talking about the ways we're going to move things forward. So make sure to check that out. You can go to goodmorningliberty.com or their other website, which I greatly enjoy, bernielies.com. Remember, that's Good Morning Liberty, available anywhere you can find a podcast. They're going to be there for you. So, I'm back from the Libertarian National Convention. Or, no, I'm sorry, not the National Convention, the California Convention. And by back, I mean I'm the 3 miles back to my house. Because the convention was very, very conveniently placed this year compared to years previous, where it was a little bit of a hike out in the middle of nowhere. So today, the last couple days, Mark and I had attended the California Convention, where we are both delegates, so we did have voting rights and privileges. And I'll keep who I voted to or voted for to myself, but you could probably guess who it went to. I will say that it aligned pretty closely with the way the polls shook out, which was Jacob Hornberger winning in a dominating fashion. He almost doubled, I think more than doubled the votes that the next runner-up, Adam Kokesh, got. Which, by the way, Mark and I did have a nice long chat with Jacob Hornberger, who's a lovely man, and also with, of course, the very kind Adam Kokesh. Right after the poll results were announced, we got to sit down and talk with them about their platforms in depth and ask them some other questions, kind of elaborate on what they were doing, some thoughts that we had. Kokesh elaborated on a pretty fascinating story about his being in the military that involved torture. Not of him, but him taking, well, you know what? I'll leave that for Monday. Make sure you listen to Monday's show. Mark's going to have our interviews with Jacob and Adam and a bunch more stuff in there. However, I'm going to air my chat with Mark and Michael Boldin from 10th Amendment Center at the end of the show today. But what you do have to join the Pride for is the after party recordings that Mark did. I think he did Mark Whitney after hours at his suite at the hotel. And I'm not sure who else he got, because I had to go home because it was late. And I had to work the next day, and I have a damn baby. So I don't even know what's to be had yet. I haven't gotten that far. So make sure you join the Pride, lionsofliberty.com/Patreon, and make sure that you do listen in on Monday. But anyway, yeah, the Libertarian Convention in California, pretty sweet. We had a lot of fans come up, but I do want to quick throw out to thank some people that came up to me. I know Matthew Butts came up. He was actually very helpful to us on the show as well, helping to pull over. He actually pulled Jacob Hornberger over during our live podcast we were doing, which was great. Casey came up. That was really nice. Also had Josh come up, say hi. So thank you guys to the people that came up and took time. Also, a big thank you to Angela McCardle, who's here in Los Angeles and is really at the forefront of the LA Libertarian Party. And for booking us. Marc and I both did talks at the event. Marc did one about the foundations of a lot of people that came to the Libertarian Party. I did mine on taking comedy back. Both were very well attended. So if you're out there, thank you for coming. I think mine probably had about 40, 45 people in it, which is great. And it went well, I will say, especially considering I was low on sleep and obviously didn't have a lot of time to put this together. It went over very well, and I look forward to expanding on that talk and adding to it and putting a little more things in play for libertarians to actively participate in, kind of like a how-to, more than conceptually, which is what the talk was about this time around. So, interesting time, though. As you'd imagine, it's like herding cats, but it was interesting hearing the debates go on between the different candidates for president. I was impressed, first and foremost, by Jacob Hornberger. I thought had a fantastic debate. Adam Kokesh also had a very strong debate, and it was interesting to see because I really hadn't seen Adam debate before. I've hung out with him in his trailer. I've seen him give random talks here and there. I've heard him talk about his book before, but I haven't seen him try to be a little bit more official. And he came across very well, even though some people might be turned about because he is basically calling for a complete teardown of everything. His promise is I will resign on day one should I become president. So I can see that being difficult for some people to get their heads around. And then the other person that really stood out, Mark Whitney was good. I liked him, but as you'll hear on the post recap, I feel that other people. Well, number one, I feel that he needs a little bit more recognition within the party before he takes on a mantle of presidential candidate. Then again, Bill fucking Weld was vice president a few years ago, so what do I know? But he came across pretty well. I think he needs to focus a little bit more on some of his other libertarian credentials. He has a little bit of a personal story he tries to lead with, and I think that's the wrong approach. Vermin Supreme was up there. I thought that Vermin had a great debate as well. He came in last in the poll. I think most people just because they view him as a side character, but he makes an excellent point. He had a hashtag he wanted to use, and I tweeted about this. Hashtag, we're in on the joke. So if he ran, he would use that hashtag and say, look, we know this is a character, but while he's doing a character, we're in on the joke. This is turning the system on its head. This is making fun of what's going on in politics and the system and how everything is a parody of what it should be as far as the way we live our lives as free individuals. So I thought he came across very well. Lincoln Chafee, the most odd, awkward person on stage. Just indescribably awkward, trying to make himself fit in against the crowd, which I think he knew was at least a good portion of the crowd was against him, but he still did get a decent number of votes. He came in third. So there you have it. And then Jo Jorgensen, which I'm not familiar with her at all. She was fine. She was fine. But overall, fun time. I would definitely go again. I enjoyed being able to take part in that. I enjoyed finally getting to meet Larry Sharp in person. He was there. And actually, Larry is impassioned and a good part of the party, man. He was the one going around handing out the ballots for people for the straw poll and just being as active as you can be. So, God bless you, Larry. All right, that's that. I'll leave the rest of it to Marc so I can move on to something else because I got to get into this Bloomberg stuff. And if you've been living in a hole and missed this whole thing, obviously, Michael Bloomberg is coming to the race. He's the former New York mayor. He's got more money than Jesus. Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit combined don't have as much bucks as Michael Bloomberg. Obviously, he also has at his disposal a media empire in Bloomberg Media, which has newspapers and websites and television shows and financial reports and everything under the sun. They own, I'm trying to think of all the different publications they own. But he's got that all. Business Week they own. So he's got these billions of dollars, which he is now spending just massive ad buys. If you have, I think it was like during the Super Bowl, he had an ad. If you turn on any of these shows, like I was watching some streaming program and every goddamn time it was a stop. And I think it was something like ridiculous. My wife was watching like some reality show and in the middle of hillbillies fighting each other and puking off of balconies, you got a Michael Bloomberg every time. It was like that kind of ad buy, heavy in the digital space, trying to reach young people. However, the irony is that while he's risen, the people that he's taking are predominantly, I think, Biden supporters. Because, and there's going to be an irony to that too. Because we've seen Joe Biden completely just flame out and die. Every time he's asked about anything, he has no answer on Hunter Biden. He has no answer for why his campaign is doing badly. Some reporter tried to ask him a question. He goes, oh, why? And he's going senile. You know, it's like, I made some joke about it on the last podcast. The man simply cannot hold up to the struggle of being in the public eye to this extent. And it's funny. I mean, Bernie Sanders is the one that had the fucking heart attack. And yet we've got Joe Biden out there. He certainly seems to be the one that's still suffering from the stroke because the man can't talk. He can't think. It's like I'm waiting for applesauce to drool out of the right side of his mouth while the left side of his eye is bleeding out the face. I mean, you cannot have a worse campaign than this. In the meantime, he's still sticking in it. And now you got Democrats just shitting their pants because they don't know what to do. They've either got this crazy radical and Bernie Sanders coming out there, who I think is destined to lose, no matter what support he might glean from the left. He's going to lose to Trump. I don't think anybody at this point is going to beat Donald Trump unless Michelle Obama gets in the race somehow. But he's losing all these voters. They're now going to flock to somebody else, and they don't trust Buttigieg. They don't think, they see Mayor Pete. He's become one of the establishment candidates. They look at him, they kind of go, I don't know about this guy. He doesn't have a lot of experience. They see Klobuchar, who they finally figured out to paste her hair down so that she doesn't look like an insane cockatoo on the prowl for sweet cockapoon. So they got that glued down. She somehow has support, despite the fact she brings absolutely nothing of substance to the table other than bad jokes. But she's getting some support as people desperately look for alternatives to Biden that aren't these radicals. And Elizabeth Warren, well, she's losing ground faster than the Native Americans did when they were fighting our goddamn cavalry. I'm sorry if that's un-PC, because one of the topics that we did talk about at the convention was Adam Kokesh made it a prominent point that Native American rights do need to be respected, and people on the platform have to have a take on that, giving them back their sovereignty, and I support that completely. Now, getting back to Bloomberg. You've got Donald Trump already cracking wise about it because of this meteoric rise he's had as people flow to him from Biden and from Warren, and they flow to him from these ad buys he's done in targeted states. And of course, though, being an old, super rich New York Jewish guy who's been rolling with the wealthy elites for his entire life and been a crass asshole because he didn't need to have interpersonal skills, because, when you're that rich, you don't have to be nice. He's got a long trail of shitty things that he said that are now being dug up and displayed for the public. Now, the first one that really got people starting to look a little deeper into it is, of course, something that we have opposed since the start of things, which is the stop and frisk policy, which is, of course, a completely unreasonable search and seizure of people, stopping them illegally, no warrants, no need, just put them against the wall, search their person based upon absolutely nothing other than probably the color of their skin. Now, this is backed up by Bloomberg specifically saying as such. And he was quoted in, giving a speech to some group, essentially saying, look, we throw them up against the wall and we always know who it is. It's always the same black kids between the ages of, 16 and 25. Those are the people that commit all the crime. Once we get them, we get all the crime. We're going to take care of it. Now, I'm paraphrasing, of course, and I'm doing a better job of it than Adam Schiff did when talking about Trump. But the concept is the same, and I think I've only paraphrased maybe 2 words out of that. Point being, Michael Bloomberg is not going to be very popular with the PC. Now, granted, there is actually some truth to that, in that a lot of the violence crime does, in fact, come from a very small segment of the population, and they happen to be, in a lot of times, in a large part, African-American males between the ages of 16 and 28 or 32, whatever it might be. And these are stats that are easily found, easily available. And it's just because of the high level of violence and crime that are in areas like, concentrated areas of Chicago, or like back in LA in the old Compton days, where you'd have incredibly violent sectors that account for a vast majority of the violence in, the United States per capita. If you look at it from that perspective, those people are doing a lot of the crime. Now, that doesn't excuse over-policing. That doesn't excuse personal violation of rights. It doesn't justify completely getting rid of your civil liberties because you're trying to stop a certain level of crime, or trying to achieve a stated goal of, whatever Bloomberg had set at the time, lowering crime by 30%. And there's other ways to lower crime by 30%, by the way, and they don't involve performing random searches and throwing people up against brick walls constantly. So that was the first thing that really raised people's ire up. And then it got worse from there. And I know it's shocking to say, considering we're talking about a stop and frisk policy that is so horrible, to say that that's not the worst thing. But the fact is, it got worse. And here's how. People dug up, these old reports. There were old lawsuits that came up, and these primarily played upon his sexism. And some of these things are pretty outrageous. Even if you are a leftist that's in favor of abortion, you're not going to like this. So this one, first one they read is from a Washington Post that published a 1997 lawsuit against Bloomberg and his company filed by Psychico Sakai Garrison. And he said misogynistic comments to Garrison and other female employees. Here's one. In her lawsuit, Garrison alleged that when she told Bloomberg she was pregnant, he responded, "Kill it," and said it again when she asked him to repeat himself. Then he said, "Great, number 16, after hearing how many employees had gotten pregnant. And another person, I guess, confirmed Garrison's account, saying he talked crudely all the time about women. He'd often say, "I'd fuck that in a second," after seeing certain people. Another time he said, allegedly, told several female employees that all you girls should line up to give oral sex to a male coworker who's getting married. And this one is really the top of the pops when we're talking about some of these, comments that can be taken as sexist/racist. It's a fucking baby, he said, according to the lawsuit. And this is in response to somebody saying she has trouble having somebody take care of her child. It's a fucking baby, he said. All you need is some black who doesn't have to speak English to rescue it from a burning building. So, there's that. And then there's a final one, which is a lawsuit from a former employee, Mary Ann Olzowski, who said that a supervisor allegedly raped her. However, this article does not say if there was a settlement. I presume there was a settlement. Otherwise, we would probably hear a lot more of it. But it's just amazing to me, right? We see all these people fleeing from Biden, this senile, incapable lunatic who can't defend himself in any way, has no answers for any of the tough questions, and can't seem to get his own foot out of his mouth, to a millionaire candidate, another old white guy, right? The left hates white guys. Another old white guy millionaire who's trying to buy his way into the campaign through millions of dollars in ad buys. Meanwhile, has atrocious things in his past: sexual harassment, racism, stop and frisk policies, and yet he's running on his history as a mayor of New York City. He's trying to tout that. Never mind the fact that we haven't even gotten into the soda bans he tried to do, all the prohibitions he put into place. Trump would have a field day with him. He would absolutely rip him to shreds. In the meantime, you're going to lose every single person on the left that's a Bernie supporter or a Warren supporter. Neither of those people are going to be supporting Bloomberg. And honestly, Bernie Sanders supporters, if they lose anything, they're Bernie or bust. They always have been. They always will be. Some of them I could even see going back to Trump if he doesn't get it. I shit you not, because the personality trait in that tends to be, yes, maybe they want some change. Maybe they want universal health care. But a lot of them are simply anti-establishment, anti-system. And they're going to go, well, Trump now's that guy. Hopefully someone would come to our side. But to be honest, in this election cycle, I don't see the Libertarian Party having that much of a chance. And that's actually candidly what most of our candidates have stated themselves. And again, you can hear more about that because I asked that question specifically of Jacob Hornberger when we sat down with him at the convention. So make sure you listen to Monday's show. So anyway, that's our Bloomberg. Welcome to hell, baby. It's only going to get worse from here. I mean, if those are the first things they dug up, just wait and see what's going to come out of the woodwork next, because those are some pretty horrible things to say. And I could excuse something, like saying you want to bang people. I don't know. I can't get that upset about that. We've all said it in context, as Trump said, locker room talk. If I'm going to give Trump a pass on that, which I did, I'm definitely going to give Bloomberg a pass on it. And I do. You're talking to some other guy making an offhand comment. I'm sure women, I know for a fact that women do the same thing. Look at that ass. I'd go down on him in the lunchroom, whatever it might be. We all do it. However, telling somebody that having childcare isn't an issue and they should just find some black to take their kid out of a burning building, that's a little bit worse. That crosses a few lines, a few different times. So anyway, again, this is the best Democratic primary season of my lifetime. It can't get any better. You go from crazy Biden to Elizabeth Warren completely imploding to having fucking Bloomberg come in the race and just be exposed as the most racist, nutball, elitist, chauvinistic millionaire that's ever lived. I just love it. Harvey Weinstein's probably looking at him and like, good. Somebody else is getting the treatment. Too funny. Okay, let's move on to another topic. Oh, you know what? I want to talk about Roger Stone. Because Roger Stone is going to prison, as of now, sentenced between something like 7 and 9 years for 3 different counts that he was charged with. One is perjury, lying to Congress, which is just a bullshit process crime. One is witness tampering, or witness intimidation, I believe is the technical way they described it. And obstruction, our favorite non-crime, in my opinion, obstruction, which I have railed against in the past. Apparently, you're supposed to be completely complicit, roll over for the government, even if you think you're innocent of a crime, and just, basically, it's like the concept of obstruction to me doesn't make any fucking sense. On any level, doesn't make sense that you're not allowed to look out, try to cover your ass if you think that somebody's going to come and get you, and then if they figure out that you did cover your ass and they are coming to get you, well, then you're in trouble. Yeah, kiss my ass. So anyway. Again, this is all stemming from the Mueller investigation, an investigation which found nothing, found no evidence of wrongdoing. And of course, it's also tied in a way to WikiLeaks, because Roger Stone had lied about his connections to WikiLeaks and lied about this and that to Congress, even on that front. And I think that also is where the witness tampering comes in, if I'm remembering correctly. And again, and I apologize, I just haven't had time to dive into every nook and cranny of exactly why they brought this up. But I remember reading in the past, I believe it was about something in regards to WikiLeaks, the witness tampering came in. Regardless, these are all crimes that are typically non-functioning. If there is not a Mueller investigation, they would have never happened. They've impacted almost nobody. I mean, there's no effect down the line. There's not even a ripple effect that somehow impacted anything else in our society other than Roger Stone being dragged in front of Congress, trying to protect himself, and then getting politically roasted on the spit because they want to try to make an example of him. This is a man accused of it for the first time of a nonviolent crime. It's not like he's out there shooting people and selling drugs, which the government hates. No, nonviolent crime of basically working as a conduit for Donald Trump and working on behalf of Donald Trump, and then being asked about it and either misremembering or intentionally lying, which now they've decided, the government prosecutors, that again, in a politicized environment, led by a lead juror who is an avowed Trump hater and has posted on social media, possibly in violation of what she was questioned on to get on this jury in the first place, said she didn't know who Roger Stone was, and then goes and posts a long diatribe on Facebook about him. But leading this case, overseeing it, an Obama-appointed judge, it just seems like it's all too politically cute. And then to sentence him to 7 to 9 years, which is more than people who have committed murders, more than sometimes rapists, more than child molesters, more than any number of people who've done far more heinous crimes, because he committed the cardinal sin of being on the side of Donald Trump. So let's send this old man, and also let's not forget that they sent a fucking SWAT team to his house in the middle of the night to arrest him. Again, a 75-year-old man, whatever he might be, kicking in his door, and meanwhile scaring the living shit out of his wife, who I think is either deaf or blind. She has some malady. And you got this man, what's he going to do? But no, let's send an armed SWAT team to his house, kick in the door in the middle of the night in this grand show, which CNN was tipped off on because they were right there on the scene, coincidentally, to document all of this. Then let's tout him out here, throw this whole kangaroo court out, and stick him in jail for 9 months or 9 years. And then, because Donald Trump gets out and says, this is ridiculous, this is a travesty, this is a completely politicized process. And then you've got Barr saying, okay, well, I'm going to step in here and stop this. Now they say, okay, well, this is a complete abdication of all the rules of law, and this is overstepping the president's bounds. This is against the Constitution, and everybody in the Department of Justice should resign. And you have all these judges that are saying, oh, we can't wait to get together. This is absurd. What's absurd is the fucking status of the administrative state right now. When you've got these people that are appointed, that are politicized, that are coming in and out, you've got overturned of people, depending on who's coming into office, who's leaving office, of course there is going to be a politicization in that system. And it's sick to see people cry about the rule of law and how Trump is somehow violating this when clearly we're seeing it on display with Roger Stone and what's happened to him. Roger Stone, who, by the way, has been on the Lions of Liberty podcast 2 times. I like him. He's a nice guy. But it's just sick to see how low everything has become when we see, this law is supposed to be applied equally across anybody. Your politics aren't supposed to matter. And then we see that somebody is clearly being sent to jail for one reason, and that is their association with Donald Trump. Just like with General Flynn. Flynn, who, by the way, committed nothing that was illegal except perjury. He lied to Congress, and he didn't even lie to Congress. He was tricked into it by the FBI under who? Oh, yeah, Andrew McCabe and James Comey are working over there, right? So those 2 guys, even though they also specifically lied to Congress under oath multiple times, they're not being thrown into jail for 7 to 9 years. They're not like General Flynn, who's going to jail because he misremembered when an email was sent. Not to mention Hillary fucking lizard woman Clinton and her burlap sack walk-in closet of debate-ready attire. She's not going to prison. Oh, why? That's right, because James Comey said that she didn't have the intent to commit a felony by putting all these documents on the servers that she destroyed and wiped clean, or the BlackBerries that she destroyed with hammers. No. She lied to us, but it wasn't intentional. So she goes free. But Roger Stone, at 75 years old, gets to be put into prison because he lied to Congress, and they say that he did it intentionally. It is fucking perverse. And again, the Democrats are talking about how they might try to impeach Trump again over this. Look, there's people getting paid a lot more money than me to run the Democratic strategy right now. And these people seem to not understand a basic mentality of the United States, a basic understanding or intelligence of Americans. Like I've always said, one of the reasons I despise the Democratic Party so much is not only because of their terrible ideas that fail constantly and are provably wrong, because we look at just history and the way they played out with every welfare program, Social Security programs being bankrupt, the education system being completely devoid of responsibility and having worse results than when it was simplified under states. All of these things off the table. What I really hate them for is that they think we're all so stupid. They believe that they are the way to go, that they're people that have the brightest ideas, right? They're the greatest minds in our country, and that the average American, the average, you and me, well, maybe you. I'm far smarter than I'm saying almost all of you out there. Maybe I should join the Democratic Party. No, I kid. But no, they think that the average American is literally out there sitting on a tractor. I mean, fucking Bloomberg himself is on record. Another one I forgot to mention, saying that, it takes a lot more gray matter to work in technology than to be a farmer. Of course, this is a man who's never farmed a day, never even picked up a hammer, never gotten a splinter outside of maybe, having his hired dominatrix shove a broom handle up his ass, because it's all the millionaires who are always hiring the dominatrixes, and I'm sure Bloomberg is no different. God, the amount of money he must have spent on broom handles and dominatrixes, guys. Fuck. I'd like to see those tax. That's why he won't release those tax returns. He could probably figure out a way to make that a tax write-off. But anyway, you see the derision they have for these fucking, middle Americans. They view them as stupid. They view them as underclass. They view them as like the Mogs or the Morlocks in the Time Traveler, the Time Machine, where you go to the future and there's this wonderful society on the surface run by these beautiful, of course they all look like Nazi youth, but these beautiful blonde people running around, and they're happy and dancing and loving, and the flowers. And then you see that the Morlocks are underground, these chud people that are made to do all the dirty work. And what ends up happening? Well, the Morlocks rise up and slaughter the elites that are getting fat and lazy on the surface, that thought that they could run the world, that thought that they had the domination of these people because they were so foolish and didn't know how to govern themselves. That is the Democratic Party in a nutshell. And that's why I cannot stand them. Anyway, I've talked too much about this. I've been droning on. Let's talk about a couple other things, too, before I jump into Michael Boldin. I want to talk about Elizabeth Warren's plan to help low-income. This really cracked me up. She has a plan to help low-income, diverse Asian American communities. Now, how many people can that possibly impact? And I don't mean, look, I don't mean to be racist in that I presume the best for Asian Americans, in that I think your average Asian American is typically doing fairly well, hardworking, very intelligent people, and in a culture, most importantly, a culture that really emphasizes education, hard work, moving ahead. But it's just so funny. Her working agenda for Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders, which she called for a collection of data on ethnicities and would help reveal disparities within the racial group. I guess she's talking because the people that are from the Philippines somehow maybe are worse off than people from Japan. Maybe, I don't know, are Hawaiians worse off than people from Malaysia? I don't know. It certainly seems like something that shouldn't be made a priority in a very tight race and to a people that as an ethnic segment as a whole do very well. And I know there's a lot of jokes about Filipino nurses, but at least in LA, it is actually true. I know a lot of people that have Filipino nurses, and I know a lot of people that are Filipino nurses. I was just a guy over who helped with my house renovations, and it's like, oh, my wife's Filipino. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, oh, yeah, she's a nurse. It's like, it's kind of a joke because it's true. But lovely people nonetheless. And as a whole, that group, that ethnic class tends to do far better. I mean, there's a reason that we have the stories that we have Asian Americans suing Harvard because they have been discriminated against them because they're just doing too damn well. So I don't know what the hell Elizabeth Warren's thinking as far as targeting the smallest minority. Maybe the trans population could be the smaller minority to target than a specific segment of a population that's doing vastly better than the average American and saying, I'm going to help you. So if we see her voting tally tick up 0.2 points in the next poll, we know where Elizabeth Warren got it from. So good job, Elizabeth Warren. No one's going PP in your Coke, girl. Next thing, Senate passes the Iran Wars Powers Resolution. This is pretty awesome. I liked that it did not go strictly along party lines, as 8 Republican senators did vote against Trump. But they passed the Iran War Powers Resolution, which is now, of course, going to go to, without a doubt, it's going to be getting vetoed. But for now, it's supporting the power of Congress to pass a resolution that's going to limit what Trump can do, what he can do as far as deploying troops, and that he would have to have explicit authorization from Congress in order to enact any war with Iran. So that's fucking awesome. And the people that you'd imagine supported it, Mike Lee, Rand Paul, Paulus, Susan Collins of Maine, Tong Young of Indiana, Jerry Moran of Kansas, not familiar with him, Lamar Alexander of Tennessee, Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. Of course, Trump did not a big fan of that. He opposed the resolution, obviously touting his assassination of Soleimani. And, those are things that just drives me insane about Donald Trump is he says he's against regime change. He says he wants to bring the troops home, and yet he's trying to get us into war with Iran. I'll leave it at that because I talked about this, I think, 2 shows ago at length, and I don't feel like doing it again. So go back and listen to my last couple shows. But in the meantime, we're going to see it's definitely going to get vetoed. We'll see what happens if it gets overridden in the House. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see, man. It's exciting. Next thing I want to talk about. We often talk as libertarians about private companies having the authority to basically rule over their domain as they will. When we have the evolution of tech companies, as we do today, having so much power, this becomes a potential problem. Now, I've always taken the side of a private company, if it is truly private, does have that authority. If Facebook, say, did not take any powers or privileges or monies from the government, if Twitter did the same, if Google was not involved in government matters and was not working with the Chinese and American governments and every other government and censoring China at the meantime and supposedly not censoring here at home, but who the fuck knows? If those things were existing, they did not have government ties to them, I would support their right to limit whatever speech they want. To have their rules. If you sign that user agreement, you bid in or you buy into that concept and that platform, so be it. That is your choice. And I also think the data privacy, and then all these bills that like California has a stupid bill that they push through to protect your data. Look, man, these companies make money off data. Why do you think it's free? Why do you think your Gmail is free? Why do you think your Google search is free? Why do you think your Facebook's free? Why do you think anything that is fucking free comes at a cost? And that cost is your data. And you authorize them to take that data. That's the trade-off, assholes. And I'd prefer to have an array of free services that make my life infinitely better, like Google Maps in my car, to tell me where to go. And if they want to take the data, great. That's a trade-off that helps all of humanity. Not only that, but having data that's available to the fingertips of people, not only for marketing purposes, but just for general research and planning purposes, vastly helps society fucking move forward, period. Okay, getting back to main thought. I'm all for companies running themselves as private entities and having their own rules. However, as we've seen, Facebook does work with the FBI. They work with the Southern Poverty Law Center. They work with government organizations as far as trying to track down hate speech, trying to track down extremist organizations. Not only that, but now Zuckerberg has just asked governments for instructions on what discourse should be allowed. And this is from Jonathan Turley, wrote an article, and he is saying that government seems to be giving Mark Zuckerberg his marching orders when it comes to what Facebook should and shouldn't do in regards to free speech. So Zuckerberg told an assembly of Western leaders in Munich, that the Munich Security Conference, that, quote, there should be more guidance and regulation from the states on basically, take political advertising as an example, what discourse should be allowed. Kind of an awkward sentence to quote. I'll try to read it more naturally. There should be more guidance and regulation from the states on basically, take political advertising as an example. What discourse should be allowed? There you go. That's by Beth Zuckerberg. Also, this edition, or on the balance of free expression and some things that people call harmful expression, where do you draw the line? So this is not him protecting freedom of speech, right? Don't get this wrong. He's literally saying there needs to be more guidance and regulation from the states. He's asking for more regulation and more guidance from the fucking government. Is there a worse entity to ask anybody for guidance or an interpretation on what free speech should or shouldn't be than a government? I mean, God damn it, we've already got hate speech indoctrinated into the minds of the populace by government intervention. People are already going to prison for twice as long because they dared to utter something to a person of color. Whereas, calling somebody a dick, punching someone in the face is punching someone in the face. The government mandating that this speech is somehow worse than any other speech is absurd on every level. And now we've got Zuckerberg getting in bed with governments the world over to ask how he can quell free speech and work with them. Because, it's not just quelling. It's not just kicking people off the platform. It's not just muting people's voices. These things always go hand in hand, especially in places like the UK and Germany and France, where they literally, and Sweden for that matter, where they literally will come at you and knock on your door and put you on a censor or fine you or put you in jail or even, look at the goddamn comic in Scotland who taught his dog how to do a zig hail. The fucking guy went to prison. And this is the insanity that happens when social media companies get in bed with governments. So in this respect, Facebook is no longer a private company. Facebook is a government entity. Which is why when you hear anybody talk about Google or Facebook or any of these companies, ask them how much data they're sharing with the government. Ask them how much money they're getting from the government. Because if they're taking that money, if they're working like this hand in hand with the government, then these need to be fought tooth and nail, and freedom of expression and First Amendment rights have to be protected on them. Because otherwise, they are simply tools of the government that are working to oppress free speech and working to subvert the will and the basic ability of the populace to converse with each other. So fuck them. By the way, those of you who are new to the show may note that I curse a lot. So welcome. Welcome to all you Reason listeners and all the people that have found us through the convention and from the kind words of our friends. Last thing. Yeah, is this the last thing? Yes. Last thing I want to talk about real quick. And I know I was talking about the LP and how you guys should join the LP so you can have a voice. And here's a good reason why. Because a gal, she's called the gun girl. What's her name? Caitlin Bennett, right? The gun girl, Caitlin Bennett. She went to Kent State. Ohio University, not Kent State. She went to Ohio University with Joel Patrick, some other guy. I guess he was a Twitter phenom, and was met by it looks like about 100 or 200 students of various races, all collected to essentially tell her to fuck off And not only that, but to throw liquids at her, throw bottles at her. I don't know. I wouldn't say it was assault, but certainly a pretty underhanded welcome, and definitely one that could have caused physical damage. Not only that, but also could have caused property damage. So apparently this was something where she just showed up to campus, which you should be able to do. So it wasn't a scheduled event, so there wasn't like protection in place to stop it. But the student reaction was one that was, in my opinion, above and beyond reproach, obviously, mob mentality. Now, she took to Twitter and said that they were terrorists. Yeah, maybe a little bit of a hyperbole, but if you're welcomed at a college campus by people screaming at you, yelling all sorts of heinous things at you, throwing bottles and throwing liquids, which may be anything, era of acid attack, urine being thrown at people, vomit being thrown at people. Hey, in LA, people throw buckets of feces on you if you happen to be sitting in traffic because LA loves their homeless so much. So she calls somebody terrorists, or called these people terrorists. And of course, left Twitter got up in an uproar saying, you can't call them terrorists. They're expressing their First Amendment rights. Now, of course, what they're doing is the heckler's veto. And I guess she's showing up somewhere unannounced. They can tell her to get out of there, fine. As long as it's not physically intimidating her, which they definitely were doing, by the way. But as long as it's not physical intimidation, fine. She's not formally speaking. You have the same right to the space as she does. But if you're throwing shit, if you're yelling at her, if you're physically intimidating her calling you terrorist because she was terrorized on your campus seems to be in the realm of fairness to me. Left Twitter got in an uproar, and not only left Twitter, but the Libertarian Party. And the Libertarian Party tweeted out, Miss Bennett, you have a right to your opinion and a right to voice it, period. These college students do as well, period. Calling them terrorists because they utilize their right to assembly and speech is both dishonest and shameful. This is after she shared a video showing these things happening. Guys, I swear to God, this is where, it's interesting to me during the chair debate, a discussion on messaging was brought up. It wasn't gone into, though, which frustrated me to no end. They did not talk about what the different chair candidates would do as far as messaging for the party, because I think that's a big problem right now. And I've voiced my concerns in the past with Nick Sawark trying to embrace leftists and embrace left-leaning people on the spectrum. I do not think that is a successful strategy, and shit like this drives me fucking mad. Because at worst, the Libertarian Party should say nothing. Just let it go. But there's no way the Libertarian Party should be attacking somebody that's on the conservative side of the spectrum for tweeting a video, which honestly looks pretty fucking scary when you're surrounded in your car by people throwing shit at you, yelling at you, and trying to intimidate you, and to defend them and say that that's okay and that you are wrong for calling them terrorists and that you are being dishonest and disrespectful. What's dishonest and disrespectful is that take on this issue, in which we're trying to allow for a conversation between people. We're trying to facilitate free speech as it should exist, which is open conversations and dialogues without this horrible politicization and violence, which has come from the current state of affairs. Seeing that kind of tweet, seeing them take that side absolutely disgusts me. So again, that's one of the reasons that I joined. I was not a member up until this past year. I felt the need to get involved. So if you want to come join me, and frankly, I support the Mises Caucus. If you would like to join myself, Dave Smith, Mance Rader, Jason Stapleton, Tom Woods, Mark Clare, John Odermatt, and a wide array of other people in making a change and deciding that this is not how we want the party positioned, you can join at lp.org/Lions of Liberty. Okay, everybody. I think that's going to do it for me in this news bit, but you lucky dogs get a super long episode today. One thing I want to remind you of before I leave you and transfer over to our interview with Michael Boldin and us just shooting the shit at the convention, where we are interrupted by Starchild, well-known activist, came in and talked to us a little bit. I do want to tell you to visit NorthSpokaneCBD.com. People giving me guff because I said North Spokane, but frankly, I think it helps to say Spokane because people will spell it right when they're putting in a web address, right? Anyway, North Spokane Hemp Company is a sponsor of ours, and you only have a couple more weeks to take advantage of 25% off by using the promo code LIONS at checkout. So go to www.northspokanecbd.com for all your CBD. Get your tinctures, get your flower, get your pet meds there. Get meds for you to help with your ailments, your ouchies, your stress, your anxiety, your sleep deprivation. I need to get some for my sleep deprivation. Anyway, check it out, northspokanecbd.com. And don't forget Lions at the checkout to get that 25% off. Go now before the end of February. Otherwise, it will be too late. Okay, without further ado, guys, here is my interview with, not my interview, me, Marc, and Michael Boldin from the 10th Amendment Center, a good buddy of ours, chatting it up at the convention. I'm just going to fade out after the interview has ended. So for me, Brian McWilliams from the Lions of Liberty and from Electric Libertyland, always stay plugged into Liberté. Are you going to bring us in an introduction in this thing?
No, of course not.
No. All right.
No, we're just here hanging out at the California State Libertarian Convention with my friend and colleague, Brian McWilliams.
Yeah, baby.
And Michael Boldin of the 10th Amendment Center, who's currently peeling an orange.
Yep.
It's a sumo.
Sumo?
It's seasonal.
I don't think they're called sumos.
That sounds
They
made
are.
up, sir.
No, they're not. Are you sure
I
it's
don't
not the
think that's
company
real.
that produces them?
Sumo citrus.
That might be the company. They're called like Sumatras or something. Or
Well, this is terrible
the Soho
material. So
Forum.
let's
Is it
let's
the
move
Soho
beyond the
Forum
name of the
oranges?
fruit.
Do they have oranges at the Soho Forum? You've been there.
I've never been.
By the way, are you going to be on the Contra Cruise this year?
I am not.
I am not either.
I refuse
want
to
my
go to the
people
Soho
rise up.
Forum until I'm one of the debaters.
I
or
agree.
host.
Me too. Although I do want to go to get a free drink from Gene Epstein if I say Tom Woodson.
I do want to
Sumo
say Tom- I've
citrus
always
is
wanted to say
also
Tom
called
Woodson,
a
Gene Epstein.
decopon.
Okay.
It's a seedless and sweet variety of mandarin orange.
Oh, for lazy people that can't
It's a
stand seed.
hybrid
That's
between
huge.
Kiyomi and Ponkan. It's only available seasonally, so whenever I see these,
And they only have them in Japantown, I'm sure.
And that was the Lions of Liberty Random Fact of the Week, sponsored by the 10th Amendment Center. Thank
Aren't
you. We'll be
you
having these
glad
every week.
You know that.
Do you want to record a 1-minute segment with us every week where you just give the react that has
A
nothing
random
to do with
fruit?
anything else, and I just insert it and they sponsor it by the 10th
Bird
Amendment
Care
Center.
with Boldin.
And Tom Woods can pay for it with discount code Woods, which makes it free.
I actually would love a Bird Care with Boldin segment.
I'm in.
It would be
Bird Care with
hilarious.
Boldin.
You just
Could be a
call it
bonus
in.
show.
So you just call it in once a week.
Subscribe to us on Patreon to learn more about how to care for your birds.
Here's a tip.
Use discount code Woods at checkout.
You have the largest
Lean into the
parrot
mic.
audience in the world.
Lean into the mic.
Oh,
Brian gets very upset.
Well, no one's going to be able to hear you. We're
That's
outside.
the point, Brian. That's why we weren't going to tell him about that.
Oh. I just noticed you have a giant hair braid of things, colored things. Sorry, this is not anybody on the podcast.
This is our photographer.
This is our photographer. It looks like her hair fell into, yes, colored strings galore. Is it a weapon? I think it could be used as a weapon.
All right.
Maybe.
Hair
Should
braids,
be.
hair braid segments, bird care segments, and fruit. These are the topics we're
This is what we're
covering.
Stapleton transferred his podcast to Wealth and Power. We're transferring to bird tips, orange.
It's all about-
what the seasonal oranges are and what you can do with your
It's
hair. to
all
make it
about the
into a
search
weapon.
terms. It turns out bird care is a highly searched term. So we're
lions of stuff.
Yeah,
gonna- lions of things.
Stuffs of liberty
Every week we talk about some stuff.
and some liberty
It might be better. I don't know.
and some lions.
Sometimes I get bored with all this liberty stuff. Don't you guys?
Wait, why are we doing this now rather than having lunch?
That's a great question. Brian, do you want to have lunch first? Should we stop this down and have
No,
lunch?
we're not going to have lunch first.
Oh, okay.
I've got
This has been a contentious
I've
issue
got to
all morning.
drink this beer on an empty stomach and then drive home to my baby.
To your baby. Oh, okay. Should we repeat the joke about how we did it before we were recording? The joke about, oh, you have a baby? We
It is
haven't heard
annoying.
about
Look,
it.
I call people out for the same shit, especially if it's over email. At least this is in person. But you know,
Why does it make it better in person? It's way more annoying in
It
person.
doesn't. Look, it's very annoying.
Emails
I
I can
have this
ignore.
baby, and unfortunately, everything I want to do, I can't do because of the baby.
Well, you're here
or my
drinking and
wife
talking about
having the
liberty.
baby.
Sounds like things are
Yes,
working out fine.
And I can do this if we could not eat lunch first, because then my wife would go insane. She'd snap the baby over her knee like a professional wrestler.
Wow, that's
Actually, she just texted me a half hour ago and said, "Could you keep him there another 3 hours?"
Are you the real
Everything's going
father?
great.
Because if so,
I'm
I
actually
can stay
not
all day.
capable.
You've got to go home to your baby.
I'm actually not capable of that.
Like not cable. Do you have
that
one of those
true?
smooth
and if
genitals?
so, should you be admitting it on this podcast?
Do you have a Harvey Weinstein?
Right, this is-
Do you have a Harvey Weinstein
Wait,
vagina
keep forgetting.
penis?
Wait a second. Sumo oranges.
All right, so what brings you guys to the California State Libertarian
Michael
Party
Bloomberg
Convention?
lost his penis
No, my
after
attempts to
fucking
move
too
on
many
didn't work.
citrus fruits. Citrus acid burned his dick to the nub.
I tried to hard pivot
Fun
right
fact.
out of that. It
Another
didn't
fun
work
fact.
at all. He just barreled right
He
through.
doesn't even hear you.
Oh, that's the problem. Oh, because I have these headphones in, so I can hear everyone crisply and clearly.
All right, what are we here talking about?
Whatever we
Conventions?
want. Whatever we want. What brings you guys here? What brings us here?
This is an actual show for the Lions of Liberty.
Actual is a very relative term.
Listen, subscribe, pull your phone out. I want to see you do it. Yeah,
We need to witness this.
I was kidding. You don't really have to pull your phone out.
It's us. It's me.
We are the Lions of Liberty.
I'm Mark. Mark Claire. Nice to meet you.
Okay, I saw your name somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm Starchild.
Starchild. Yeah, Starchild is here.
Oh, San Francisco.
We've got Starchild here.
Nice.
Really, the reason we're doing the podcast outside is so we get random. Yeah,
Oh,
amazing. I'm used to
amazing.
like something on the top, maybe, and like maybe
Yeah,
a.
you know, I've got some outfits.
We're seeing Starchild
You're saving your
before-
best for
Yeah.
Sunday night. I imagine.
Did you work on the San Francisco facial recognition ban?
Not
Oakland
directly.
Privacy did a lot of great work on
Yeah, there's
that.
a group I'm sort of loosely part of.
Tracy
Oakland
Rosenberg,
Yes,
yeah.
Oakland Privacy Working Group.
I love them.
I can't claim any direct credit there. but
That's
yeah,
okay.
I'm certainly.
Yeah.
You know, I was very happy to see
Yeah,
that.
domino effect happening a little
yeah,
bit.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
It is such an important issue too. And of
course.
freedom to wear masks.
Can you tell us a
Well,
bit more
a
about
lot
that,
of-
Michael?
Hold on, let me give him a mic if you're going to talk to him.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's just
let's do
one
that.
way talking.
Let's do it. Now
Well,
you're on
so
the show.
San
That's great.
Francisco is the first locality in the country to have instituted a complete ban on government use of facial recognition. It's impossible to use facial recognition as a surveillance tool under basically a system where it's a warrant based on probable cause. It is mass, ubiquitous surveillance. It puts people in what Georgetown Privacy would call a perpetual lineup. And it can be used for all kinds of nasty stuff. So there was a lot of work primarily from Oakland Privacy, which is an excellent local group on surveillance issues up in the Bay Area that pushed to get this passed. And then they followed up in both Berkeley and Oakland with similar bans.
Santa Cruz, I think, is
Santa
talking
Cruz?
about it. Yeah.
Well, and Alameda had their initial vote on it as well. So there's like 3 or 4 localities in Northern California, and this has already spread to Massachusetts, where Northampton and a couple of localities.
And it's
in-
pertinent, too, because I think it was just in the UK that they've approved the use of AI and that sort of facial recognition technology
Yes.
to find potential suspects or look for people that match the descriptions of suspects. So it's like, again, to remind people, the
According
UK,
to Born Supremacy, they've been
it
doing
is
that for a long
terrifying
time.
how much the UK, like their surveillance state, the Big Brother society is out of control.
Although San
There you go,
Diego
Starchild.
is
You can
actually
add,
one-
add your comments if you like.
San Diego is one of the worst in the world, and they actually shut down. It's the worst in the U.S., or it has been, their facial recognition system, and they use these with little mobile devices. They can scan someone, and it goes into the what is it called? The FBI's next
And it says
generation.
late on taxes. Like,
Yeah, probably.
lists everything you're doing wrong.
Do you
that
know
was
which
literally just- that was just
agency in San Diego? Is it
the-
the whole government, or is it some
the
specific
entire-
agency that's doing it, like the police or the?
No, everywhere. If they, the police, it's the entire government entity, but it was the largest one, and it was just shut down on January 1st because here in California they passed a bill to at least temporarily for 3 years ban the use of facial recognition in police body cams or any other police mobile devices. So San Diego stopped that, but I don't know how we got talking about, because Starchild, and I just assumed that Starchild worked on the Northern California or Bay Area efforts to ban surveillance.
Well, I did work heavily on the campaign of Chase Boldin, who's the very progressive district attorney that just got elected in San
Okay,
Francisco.
cool.
So that was kind of a related thing, because a lot of it comes down to like, well, how are the police and DAs actually going to implement this
Yeah.
stuff? Are the DAs going to charge people that the police arrest based on facial recognition evidence or this kind of thing?
To me, it's a great example of how when you're like consistent in your libertarian ideals, you will always find people to build coalitions with. So I don't know where you are on the right
Yeah.
to keep and bear arms, but I'm assuming a lot of those coalition members
Yeah.
are horrible on the right to keep and
Right.
bear arms. But you can set that aside and be like, well, let's get some shit accomplished on facial recognition or asset forfeiture
Sure.
or something like that. So when you're consistent as a libertarian, you can build coalitions with anybody on any issue all the time, and you're going to be the best in that group on it all
That
the
is
time,
an excellent
too.
point. And one of the things, I was on the platform committee this year, and we, it's kind of a clusterfuck. Can I say that?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
Broadcast show or not.
My first 10
Is there a
episodes, 6 years
podcasting
ago, I
now?
tried to keep it clean, and then I just gave up. Once I had Brian on, I had to give up. So
But, I think it's very important for the reasons you mentioned, in part, to have a platform that is very detailed, mentions as many different issues as possible, because people will come to...
For one issue.
Yes, the issue that they care about. They'll want to see, okay, I'm really interested in the facial recognition issue. What does the party say about that particular issue?
Just one, like most people are actually one issue voters when it comes down to making a decision. It's like a lot of people will be, it's like, abortion, women's rights, the drug war. A lot of that thing does come down to one issue, especially because the two major parties are so similar in practice to each other. So, I agree with you completely. Like, list everything that we stand for, make it very clear, make it very understandable, and build those coalitions.
So I hope you all are delegates, because we will be talking about this later. There's people that want to water down the platform, make it much shorter, so we don't have that opportunity to express solidarity with all these different people. Even the people who aren't one issue voters, they may be sort of one issue at a time that they're concerned about.
You're speaking of the California State Party platform, because there's a whole, you could probably sum it up better than me, but there's some people that just want to use the national platform as the platform and essentially have no unique platform, whereas others would want a unique California State Party platform.
Yes.
So what would be, I assume you're on the unique state party platform side.
Very much so. And I
each state is different, right?
Tried to get the national platform just recognized as, yes, this is our platform at the national level, but we also want a platform at the state level that talks about unique state issues.
I like that.
I'm all for, and it's funny, I'm anti-watering down a platform specifically, but I, at the same time, so I do like public relations marketing for a living. So I will tell you, though, if something's way too long, it will not be read at all, and people will just check out. So it's something where making it shorter, making it a little bit more to the point does help. And I think that, it's like one of those things where if you have a party platform that's overly wordy, overly self-exuberant, then it can actually turn people off, rather than having something that's more pointed as far as here's the things we need to focus on. And you could have something too where it's like from a platform where you go, here's the things we want to do first.
Well,
and then expand after that.
Can I kind of throw another thought on that? Sure. Because I was going to suggest, the longer the better, because no one's going to read any of these things ever anyways.
Most people are not going to read it cover to cover. I compare it to Wikipedia. Is Wikipedia too long?
My thought is, because so much of what I do is
nobody reads it cover to cover.
Most everything that I do is based on issue-by-issue coalition building, like we talked about in that last episode when I was on with you and Joshua.
Which reminds me, you've been on the show way too much.
I have.
We're going to have to really scale the Boldin back.
That's why I have the anti-Michael Boldin coalition. We're running for the California.
So the AMBD,
yeah.
So my thought is, when you're communicating with people, at least what I learned from the old school Harry Brown days, is you find something that resonates with that person. And whatever's important to them, you can just be like, well, yes, borders is in the state platform. Facial recognition is in the state platform. We're totally with you on asset forfeiture or whatever it may be. And if you can point to that, that's all they care about. And then you can maybe bring them in. And once you bring them in to the fold a little bit, maybe they'll start listening to you on other things once in a while, too. Once in a while. And that would be a win.
Please come say this later during debate. This is the kind of stuff you're preaching to, warming my heart here.
Well, I'm a big fan of your work for a long time, actually. So I knew your name already. I run an organization called the 10th Amendment Center. I know, I'm just excited.
I've been following you for years.
I have been. So
I'm a big fan of what's in your trash.
Is that a game show?
What's in your trash?
I see you from the outside, Starchild. I see you embodying that type of approach that resonates a lot with me. So that's...
Well, listen, we can continue Oh yeah, we'll get you kind of and this is an interesting thing we could continue to talk about.
Everybody's just right there.
Yeah, I'll let you go, but I did want to ask you one more question, because we're at the LA or with the California Convention, and one of the things we're going to do is a little video vignette. I have to know, what do you think is under Vermin Supreme's boot?
Brains.
All right, he says brains. I don't know. I was hoping for something more exotic
or a zombie thing.
That's true. It could be one of the other. You lift up the boot, and there's just 3 brains stacked under there.
It has, but one of my poetry teachers, one's called Fruitful Ambiguity.
Yeah, there you go.
I actually think that's
my Tinder profile name, by the way.
I think it's one slightly smaller version of the exact same boot.
Oh, it's like a Russian doll.
And a tiny Vermin Supreme.
It's a Russian doll.
Or if you read iPony Blueprint for New America, it might be the Internet Meme Council that's under there.
There you go. All right, well, Starchild, thank you, man. Good to come on the show. Yeah, we will stay in touch. But But I think that's,
Let's
I
have
mean,
more rotating guests. That's
more
fun.
rotating
Yeah,
guys. That's a good. It's good to
Keep
do
sending
out
them
here.
down the line.
It's good to do out here. But I mean, it is kind of interesting though. The more versus the less versus more, or less is more.
I get where you're coming from. If someone's reading the whole thing and it's got a zillion things in it, then they're going to be like, ugh.
But not even getting to that point though. But I think it's something where, look, you can point to somebody and go, look, we're for, we're anti civil asset forfeiture, we're anti this, that. But if they go and look into it, if they see it's one of 7 million things, I think it cheapens it.
Can't you have a basic platform that says these are the basics of what we believe,
Right.
and then
All
to learn more
encompassing.
about these issues, click here and here.
Well,
and
it's
here,
kind of
and if
like
people want to,
we're
then
talking
they
about
can.
the 10th Amendment, man. It's kind of like our platform could embrace that philosophy of, look, we embrace these specific principles.
And this is how it applies
and it applies to all of them.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? And that way it's a little bit easier to comprehend than going through and being like, Jesus Christ, these people have it's like,
You should be
I got a
speaking
lot of
during this
problems
debate
with you people,
later.
and you're going to hear about it as a platform. It might be easy to digest that way.
Maybe, yeah. I just like the whole coalition thing. So however you get there, I think is the winner.
I agree.
Because like in your speech, you were talking about bringing people in. In your speech, you're talking about, both of you guys were talking about.
we
how
gave
to
speeches
bring-
earlier. You might
That's
have heard
our
them if I
thing.
published
All
them.
three
before
of us
this.
did speeches here.
So, Mark, your speech talking about how people came from different ends of the political spectrum, I think they came in from basically this type of thing. You're talking about the similar type of
They
thing.
agree
through
with someone on the
culture.
one issue, and that
Yes,
allowed them to listen to them on the other things because
Right,
they
yeah.
say, well, if I trust you on this, then maybe you're right about a few other things. Maybe I'll
Or
just
at
listen.
least you're
if nothing
not
else.
insane. I'm not going to oppose you on the Federal Reserve because you're so good on the drug
And then they'll
war or
leave you
something.
alone on issues they don't know about at least.
Maybe.
It's like, well, okay, I don't know about that stuff, so maybe he's
I got that a lot in the transition from like Bush to Obama, Obama to Trump. Like obviously living here in LA, we all know that most of the friends that we make locally are all leftists. I came from that end of the spectrum, self-avowed socialist at some point, Marxist. But like as soon as Trump came in, all of a sudden I'm getting phone calls from people who would just be like, ignore me on everything, saying like, hey, Boldin, so what was that whole 10th Amendment thing all about?
we don't like this guy now, so now this sounds like actually a good thing.
Exactly. Yeah, under Obama, they're like, no, Obama knows our rights. He would never abuse them.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think a lot of people like will look into things on fleeting political motivations, but I think there's something to build on where you do gain momentum over time.
Well, there's almost something to be said for like having a simpler platform statement, but then have a page on the Libertarian Party website that lists, here you go.
Yeah.
Here's a list of things we oppose. Don't make it part of the platform officially. Like at broad strokes, so it's understandable. But then have a list, like this is what we oppose. Brrr, list them. So that way, not only it helps with your Google searching, but people can go and literally look, okay, I hate this thing. Yeah, good. The Libertarians do too. Make it a little bit easier. Again, accessibility. And that's like, my talk was on comedy, taking comedy back. But at the core of it, it's making liberty more accessible through comedy. Like you're saying, coalition building, getting them in, introducing them to the one concept, and then broadening and be like, look, you think that's fucked up. All this other shit's
it's
fucked up
also
too, man.
fucked
You
up,
just
too.
don't realize it because
You
you've been
think
on the
that's
you have a
bad.
team mentality about it, or you don't know that the policies are having the opposite effect.
Yeah.
But once you get in there, once you can have people not reject you as a lunatic, well, you can get a lot done.
Yeah.
Well. You guys are looking at me like I have to comment on what
I
you're
don't know. I
saying.
thought you were
You're
gonna-
leading. We're waiting. We're both like.
Oh, is this what hosting
Well,
is?
next.
That's it.
Yeah. Ding
Well.
next
Well, why don't we talk about the presidential candidates?
for Libertarian.
Yeah, why not?
Dude, I'm still trying to figure it out.
Why
because
not?
we just
vote.
met a guy.
Boldin doesn't vote, which makes you even better to comment about it.
Well, you can't. You're
your
not a
vote
delegate either,
doesn't
right? So you're
matter.
not voting.
No.
So but Mark and I are both able to vote for people getting in the debate and then in the convention.
It's a tough choice
the
because
big
I
Libertarian
kind of want everyone in the debate, but you
Me
only
too.
get to
Well,
choose
there's that
5.
dude,
and then only 6 make
who are
it.
you
Guy
guys
from
just
Georgia.
talking to in there? Georgia.
Dude,
John
what I
Mons.
liked about him.
This guy seems like a cool
The-
guy.
the-
You know what I
guy-
liked about him? The first
Mons.
thing on his flyer says,
I like his bow tie. That's all
says,
I like.
well, that's cool. He says, bring the troops and drones home. Because if you
Yes.
bring
Yeah, if
the
you
troops
leave them-
home,
That
the
is-
drones are
like,
operated
don't worry,
from
the
South
robots
Florida.
got it from
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah.
Well, you
No,
should
that's
mention
cool.
where's
Like he's
Mons? Is he still standing in there? I'll
Get
wave
him
him
in.
over.
Get him in.
Yeah, I never heard of Mons before. May I see
Yeah.
that?
I think the craziest thing about trying to navigate all of this stuff is how many people run for president in the
many
Libertarian
are
Party.
there?
In every party. I have no idea because every day I found about 6.
Who are the
3 more.
leaders?
I found out
Kokesh
about
and
2 more
Hornberger?
today.
I like that he's got a committee to elect someone,
Well,
so that's good.
It depends on what you mean by leaders.
Well, look,
but
it's
who are
there's
the
no,
most
there's no
likely
official
to win?
polling.
Hold on, is it just me or is get the federal government out of education slightly bolded on this postcard? Is it
It
an
is.
accident?
It is. It is a
He's really serious about that.
I do
one.
love that because
So,
they should be gotten out of
regular
education.
font, semi-bold.
Yeah, right? It's a little semi-bold about
Yeah,
getting the
definitely
government
semi-bold.
education. And,
I would have to think the leading candidates would be right now.
Yeah.
Hornberger. I'm going to say Chafee just because he has a lot of.
yeah.
He's
I
just,
saw him in the lobby,
He's the
by
type
the
of
way.
candidate that does excel in the LP, and probably I don't know after that. I don't know if I'm going to be serious
Really?
about who.
I think
I don't know who's really leading after that.
if I was going to be, maybe I'd.
And I think
did like
Mark Whitney's going to rise quickly.
I did like Mark
you can tell.
Whitney on-
Talking
not
to him
just
for
because
2
he's on
minutes
the
today,
pod.
you can tell that this guy's got charisma. He's got communication ability. I mean, and
For
he's,
sure.
he's clearly building coalitions with the right people.
Well,
I've talked
hey.
to 3 people today that I know are major players and major movers in the Libertarian Party that are all on his team.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not messing around. So.
Well, dude, I'll tell you what, man. It's like I was talking about. Whitney, he's a funny guy.
I've
He's
never even heard of
likable. I hadn't either really until
listen
I
to John's interview with him on Felony Friday last week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he just said, but he seems really interesting. He's got a good personality.
Where's he live?
He was in radio, so he has a good entertainment background. He can talk, no problem.
And he knows
had
Shadow
his own one-man
Stevens
show.
personally, which impressed me.
Shadow Stevens.
We should hire Shadow Stevens through him to voice over our show.
I like it. Is Shadow
I'm actually
considered a
serious about
racist
that,
nickname
too.
now, though? Yeah, like
Oh,
you're white.
maybe.
You can't use the nickname Shadow. You fucking bigot.
I didn't think about that.
But no, Whitney. Again, it's like also he's funny. He's likable, he's personable, and that's libertarians. That is a big problem for the platform: is being likable and being approachable. You know, it's like you can be as right as
and
rain,
being successful.
But if people hate you,
Because libertarians
it doesn't
are
matter.
broke, way too broke.
A lot
and he's
are way
a successful
too broke.
entrepreneur, so that helps.
Yeah, that helps too.
He doesn't have Trump money, but he has Whitney money.
Yeah. But I would say, I mean,
Trump
I think,
doesn't even have Trump money.
I still think
Right.
Vermin Supreme will get a decent amount of votes.
I think he will.
I
Are we
don't think
talking
he's gonna
about
get
at the end of the
nomination.
day or about this debate?
I think
he'll make. I don't know if he'll make. I don't know who will make this debate. This is
I
actually
think he'll
going to
make
be
it
interesting to
the next
find
debate.
out.
Well, it's kind of interesting. It's not just like a top 5 cutoff. It's done by percentage of the vote. So there could be 10 people in there.
No, it's top. It's 6.
No. I just talked to people that said specifically they made sure it's not a cutoff.
Doesn't the paper say 6?
I don't know. The guys I just talked
As you can
to
tell, we're
about
experts
it.
on how this all
Yeah,
works.
this is our first time. But no, they said it's a percentage base. So it could be, 8 people that have 15%. I'm sure my
Interesting.
math adds up there.
I'll tell you, as far as I'm
I'm
concerned,
not math man after all.
the weirdest part about being at official Libertarian Party conventions, and I felt the same way at the LNC, is that everyone wants your vote, and suddenly it becomes about getting your vote in many ways. I mean, I love networking and talking to people, but it always just a little bit feels a little bit weird when people ask for votes.
I don't like
Isn't that
networking,
what
so
is
I
gonna
made them
happen
each
now?
give me
Yeah,
a
it is.
blowjob.
It's politics.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'm not.
Back there.
I'm angry about it, but it's new to me
creepy.
as someone who never got into political
Yeah.
conventions in that way. It's always like, oh, by the way, you're like talking to someone, then you realize they're like, hey, if I could get, you're like, oh wait. So wait,
I
why-
thought you
were
just
talking-
wanted to
I thought
hang
you just
out.
thought I was cool, and
Yeah,
then you're like,
you
wait a
just-
minute, you just because I have
I
this
just want
delegate
to
badge
hang
on.
out, man.
Usually I think it's because they want to be on the podcast, which it usually
I don't even
is.
get that.
We're in the middle of a podcast here. Come on.
Oh, we have special guest rotated. How's it going?
How's everyone doing?
All
We're-
right,
we're
we
huge
shall-
celebrities,
we
so
shall.
a lot of people,
Wait, so we didn't even get an introduction to this person is? I just yelled out to go away.
Yeah, you guys don't want me around. I get it. No, I'm Casey.
Casey Brian, man.
Casey, nice to
Cheers.
meet you, man. I'm Mark.
Mark.
Michael Boldin.
Is he running for
Michael.
president?
I'm Casey. Nice.
Oh, okay, nice. Oh, like a Mises Caucus guy. Awesome.
Yeah, it's fine.
That's we don't want to throw our support specifically behind anybody, but for the most part, we're
But-
pretty much all Mises Caucus.
Wink, wink.
So are you guys both Hornberger people then?
Horny for
We were just
Hornberger.
discussing the presidential candidates
Have you-
and
have
who's
you made
most
those bumper
likely
stickers
to
yet?
succeed.
Horny for Hornberger.
Horny for
Hobby
Hornberger?
sticker makes
Is that a real thing?
Oh, well, just write it on people. Just write on people's cars in Sharpie.
What's the internal debate on some of the border restrictionists on Hornberger's aggressive open borders policy?
I don't know that many people that are actually for. I think even the biggest battle is just like no borders or borders where they're really, really open.
Yeah,
I don't see
yeah.
people in the LP that are really closed. They're really for border controls compared to what we have now. As far as I'm concerned, as far as I've seen.
I think the debate was really about like what.
We can't, this is awkward now because nobody can hear what you're saying. Hold on. If you're going to talk
Well-
at a question, we have to answer on the podcast.
Matt, introduce
I'm an
yourself.
outsider.
Lions
I'm
Liberty,
an
longtime
outsider.
Lions Liberty fan, and me.
My name is Matthew Butts. So I think the debate is more around what does open borders mean? Because when you say that, it's almost like you're saying you want to abolish private property, and that's definitely not it.
Right.
Now, it's the borders are private property.
Are they?
Well, a lot of it's on private property.
Okay.
Because they've actually had to do eminent domain on a lot of property to create
pools
the wall.
resources together like a commune, and they pave their own roads and they have the right to exclude or to include.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's.
And they don't
I
have the
think-
right to stop someone from flying over them to get to some other
Right.
part.
Well, I think it's.
Yeah, but on
Well, hold on.
government managed property, that obviously is different in the status quo. And at least from what I've seen as an outsider, is that Hornberger takes a position. I love Jacob's positions on so many things. He takes a position that is potentially radically different, and maybe something that would have been seen by some people as kind of like, that's a line in the sand. But he's still getting enthusiastic support. So I found that really.
You mean about his open borders position?
Yeah.
You think will cause him trouble in the LP? Or
No, in maybe some of the Mises caucus.
Yeah, or like some of the more right-leaning people.
Yeah, but they're still giving him support. So maybe it's not as important to the people as has been kind of portrayed. Because I would think that at least other people in LP kind of portray Mises caucus as being closed borders.
And I think it's more of that. I think it's more of a perception of portrayal.
Okay.
Because from what I see, I'm in their Facebook group, and
Yeah,
I see
yeah.
an internal debate, and I never really see that. I see them talking about how other people are saying that, and then saying, well, no one even thinks
okay,
that.
okay.
And then the debate is more like Matt saying, what does defining open borders, what does that mean? Does that mean the state should open the borders? Does that mean we should respect private property? And that's more the debate about what it
That's
really means.
interesting.
But really, it's the range is probably more from like complete no borders to like Ellis Island style immigration where anybody can come in. They just have to stop and say, I'm here. Basically, I think that's
Okay.
that's the closed border restriction I've heard in those kind of circles.
No, that's
which is like the
really
Larry
interesting
Sharp
to me.
position. That's kind of like the
anybody in the Mises Caucus goes.
Is Ellis Island style?
That's as far as anybody in the Mises Caucus goes. Is like the Ellis Island side. Like it's still open borders in comparison. It's still open borders in comparison.
it's still you don't need a visa ahead of time. It's still you don't need a passport ahead of time. I mean,
it's kind of like make sure
it's way more radical than we have now.
Kind of disease that's going to wipe out the population or something like that.
That's true. It's an interesting time to talk about that aspect of borders. We got the coronavirus right now. People are freaking out about. I still think it's a bunch of bullshit, but not to say people haven't died. But again, elderly people.
LAX the other day, I wasn't wearing a mask.
You're okay. Matt says he was at LAX.
Man, when I first
you
moved
can't
to
get a
LA
mask right now. By the way, libertarians,
sold
the
out.
party should buy a factory, make masks, because we could fund the party for the next 4 years based on selling those masks to China. I guarantee it. Rico, who's on the podcast,
put his face on the mask. Why not?
yeah, whatever it is. Yeah, Rico's
awesome.
face.
Yeah, why not?
No, but literally,
I'd buy one.
his girlfriend is from China, and they're so desperate for the masks that he's trying to find masks to buy up and send back to China because they can sell them at a profit.
Should we start that? Lions of
Yeah,
Liberty.
if we can find someone to do it.
20%
They don't seem that
off
hard to
with
make.
Coupon code
It's just a
Lions.
little paper and some string, right? Or
Should
is
we
there
just
more
send-
to this medical
should we just
stuff
start
than I-
folding paper into a shape of a mask and send it over with some rubber bands?
Maybe.
Well, you put it. How about this? We'll send it. It's a do-it-yourself kit, and we just send like a piece of cotton and 2 rubber bands, and we're like some assembly required.
And no guarantees
You
of
make
any
a killing.
sanitary anything.
Yeah, and we don't. These
asterisk.
These
Little
may be
you might
used-
get every disease.
These may be used pads
And several new ones.
Why don't we just send over tampons with wings and be like, just tape it to your face?
Wow.
I'm sorry, this is a genius solution. Nobody's with me. That's fine. You guys, fine. When I'm riding the millionaire train to Moneytown, no stops for you.
I know. I'm
no
a
stop for any
co-creator.
of you.
I came up with the idea of putting Rico on it, so I deserve something.
That's a horrible idea.
Okay.
Horrible idea.
Do you two always fight like this? Because
Yes.
if I have to sit between
We do it
you
for
two,
we do it for the crowds.
yeah,
That's
they're
why you're
both
sitting-
grounded.
That's why you're sitting here, so you're safe.
We do it up. Something's going on behind
Anyway,
us. I don't know what it
else?
is.
It's probably a drug deal. We're at the LP.
Oh, I hope so.
convention,
Jesus Christ. You know what? That's one thing that bugged me about Porkfest. You can find some drugs, but not all.
Well, you live in California.
Yeah, I know. It's a smorgasbord. It's great. It's one of the
Hampshire.
biggest benefits of being in this state.
New Hampshire, maybe.
Here you have to show your
Wild.
drugs to get in the club. You have
Exactly.
nothing,
Like,
sir.
You didn't,
I'm sorry,
you didn't
we
bring any
can't.
girls.
we can't allow
Let me
you,
check your pockets, sir. Okay, you've got several hits of ecstasy. Go ahead, then.
So, top 5 favorite LP candidates. Michael Bolton, go.
I don't know any of them. I
Herman
just know
Supreme.
Adam and Jacob. And Adam, I consider an old friend, and I love him personally. And Jacob is someone that I learned from for many, many years. Like even before I got
Taught
really
you to fuck.
active. Like, yeah. He
Wow.
taught me all my ninja skills.
They don't call him Horny Burger for nothing, eh?
It's true. Boldin, you don't know this about Boldin, but he can disappear into any. It doesn't matter what the wallpaper is. He can disappear into it.
And they've run some articles of mine at Future Freedom Foundation, so that's always kind of wins me
So
over.
this is really a kickback.
Yeah,
he
it's-
bought you.
I'm in on that. So, but yeah, Jacob is just so consistent in his messaging, whether it's
30-year track record.
Yeah,
so
like he is really, really great in the principles. I don't know what the right person is for the Libertarian Party. I mean, I would vote. I just never am compelled to. At least I haven't been yet. I tried for Ron Paul, but failed. The Secretary of State sent me a message a few months later, a letter that said my registration wasn't on file, so it didn't count. But I don't know. Those are the only two.
They personally wrote you a letter?
Yeah, well, I'm sure it was a form letter, but I did get a letter.
How
5 months later.
Instead of naming people just as a spectator, as someone who won't vote, probably, what kind of candidate would you want representing that libertarian message? What are the types of things you'd want them talking about?
I'm not into so I came to where I am now heavily through the influence of Harry Brown back in the day. And then I met Michael Badnarik years ago. He gave me a gun lesson, still makes fun of me to this day, anytime I see him, how bad I am compared to my partner, Sarah, who's got really good groupings, and I suck. But so I like the real hardcore messaging. I think the party, if it's going to exist and it's going to promote the word libertarian, I think the party is only effective if they're teaching people what libertarian is, not Bob Barr, drug warrior. Gary Johnson is a really good guy, but he was milquetoast. So in a way, he got the most votes, but
an app for flubbing. And
could he have gotten way more votes if he was hardcore on everything?
Or could somebody have gotten more votes if they weren't? Again, he was kind of flubbing around, and Bill Weld was an atrocious sub-candidate.
Weld is terrible.
For VP. Terrible. So, and my question is, look, as libertarians, for right now, should we, to your point, should we accept, look, we're not going to win. It's about education, number one. Or should we look at it from the point, again, I always come back to likability and making libertarians not a
because I think you can actually do both. I mean, you're not going to win. We all know we're not going to win.
National level, but there are wins that happen more and more often on a local level.
That's a question, though. Should somebody go up there tonight, maybe me, and be like, look, we're not going to win. Accept that we need to build, before we do anything, we need to win more people. Like Mark talked about it.
Brick by brick. That's how Jeff Deist put it at the Mises Institute's annual Porter Summit. He said, literally, you only win, at least in Jeff's view, and I think he's absolutely right, you win it brick by winning over individuals. If you're talking about individual liberty, then winning over individuals seems like a pretty fucking good strategy, right?
Well, I mean, Ron Paul did, and I know people were, certain people think that we shouldn't even have a candidate. Like voting, screw voting, screw the system. I reject that because if we're talking about the best way to reach a mass amount of people, having a candidate in there, as long as you can get into the debates or get some sort of platform, is how you can do it. Now, Ron Paul was a Republican, for Christ's sakes, running, but he was the most libertarian person we've ever had espousing our values I don't even know when. When's the last time you can think of anybody who had the reach
on a national stage?
On a national stage. And that's the thing. And Ron Paul, he's still, even though he went on a little too long and a little too detailed in what he was talking about, which is good for education as long as people are paying attention and can follow it. Ron Paul would lose people because he would go too into the weeds at times. So those of us who know this, we go, yeah, man, I'm with you. But the average viewer, they go, what the fuck is he talking about?
Hornberger doesn't have that problem.
No, in my view, pretty good about it.
So Hornberger, to me, I think the best communicator for liberty in my lifetime was Harry Brown. And just so good, so clean on every single issue. He could make it resonate with the person without having to go into another area. And that type of communication skill with good social media and good digital marketing can reach a lot of people. And you're right, a win really is about winning over people at this point.
Well, that's where, too, Mark Whitney was on, and I really did, I find him to be a likable candidate, and he's knowledgeable. And, it was fascinating listening to the interview that he did with Odie on Felony Friday, but talking about how he worked at a radio station back in the day that had 3 libertarian DJs. Good luck finding that now. But, I mean, being able to communicate that is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And being able to, I like that he is personal. He can talk on the issues just like Hornberger. Now, I need to go far more in depth on Whitney. I know a lot about Hornberger. I don't know a lot about Whitney yet. But I think that he should definitely be in a conversation as somebody that, I mean, when I cast my tokens, I'm going to put one in Mark Whitney's basket to get him on the next level and the next level of debate for the party because he can communicate. And Gary Johnson, even though some people were impressed, and you said you thought he was okay. For me, he was not a good communicator.
No, not at all.
At all.
Well, and he's milquetoast in some of his views, so he wasn't.
He won Larry Sharp over. That's what brought Larry Sharp into the party.
I mean, Gary's
Once
a nice
in a while,
guy.
you get one.
Every time I've met Gary over the years, Gary has always been nice to me. I think he's a nice person, and he means well. He just isn't hardcore on liberty.
Yeah.
And I think in the situation that we're facing today, where the ruling class at every level, state, federal, local, is really anti-liberty, having a refreshing message of something completely different all the time, I think that has a chance of winning some people over. And if it doesn't, then maybe some generation in the future can follow up with that. I mean, you got to build the foundation today.
Right. And also, like, you look at it, and I've made this point before, too, and I think we all will agree this is true, that we had people that voted for Ron Paul, and now the last election, they voted for Trump.
Oh,
and
gross.
you go, how are these two things? How can you overlap so much with these two people? But it's because a lot of people are anti-establishment, and
right.
from a base level, they go, I want something different and new. Those same people that voted for Ron Paul voted for Trump, and now a lot of them might end up voting for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
And ideologically, these things cannot be farther apart.
Yeah.
But they want something different. They want a unique voice. And I think, if, again, the communication side, to communicate that unique positioning of, look, we want to turn this system on its head, but a lot of people that are supporting Bernie, they might not be socialist nutbags, but they like that he wants to fight back against the system. And if we have a
He
libertarian
wants to end the
candidate who
drug
can
war,
effectively
and
do
he's
that,
a little bit
he's-
less bad on foreign policy. I get it.
A
I
little
would
bit.
never vote for him, but
No, well, neither would I.
but I think, anyways.
So it's going to be interesting to see who comes out of it, man. I mean, I still think at this point probably Hornberger might be the best candidate, but like I said, I'm open. And truth, even Vermin Supreme, he turns people off because of the boot thing, but at the core, he's an intelligent man who's
legit.
got a nice platform to talk to people about. It's just the average voter, though, is not going to vote for a man with a boot on his head.
Not usually.
Not usually.
But
But the average voter, isn't usually voting.
Bloomberg versus Boot. We haven't seen the polls on that yet. So
And I already have Vermin Supreme's running phrase. We need boots on the ground.
oh, that's great.
Mark Whitney's just keep banging.
Oh, I just saw
That's
he's
hilarious.
next to the
That
Mises
really-
Caucus
Comes from
table.
knocking on doors.
Oh, I
and
know.
salesmen.
That's hilarious, though.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Do you see that the Young Americans for Liberty are suing Bernie Sanders?
That is so dumb.
Over I agree.
That's
it's
really dumb.
It's a little stupid.
I thought that was a joke that they were suing.
I
No,
did
I
too,
saw
but
a
they're literally
tweet.
Like,
suing
surely
them
that's a joke.
because it's
But
the
it's
what
not.
is it?
Operation Win at the Door.
Operation Win at the Door.
And
Doesn't sound that
somebody sent
libertarian.
out a text from the Bernie campaign that
Yeah.
says, this is our Operation Win at the Door. It's not an official campaign slogan. So they're suing him for intellectual property. I think Kinsella would probably have something to say about that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I just don't know if that's really I get.
Seems like the wrong fight to.
I get the idea of trying to inject your message into
Yeah.
whatever conversation.
and maybe
is
more about
happening.
publicity for them.
I was
Well,
than
exactly.
anything else because there were mainstream articles about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And to your point, it could be the argument made, if you're going to sue about something, why don't you sue the government about any number, or your local county or your local whatever, about these atrocious civil rights violating policies that you have on every day playing out? But no, let's focus on suing Bernie Sanders' campaign. Who gives a shit, man? Come on.
Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else you guys want to chat about, or should we let Brian go get his baby? Go feed his baby.
Well, I don't know. Well, I'm trying to think what other things are top of mind. I don't know, man.
I'll have more to say after
Do you
tomorrow
think-
because
here's
tomorrow
a-
night is the presidential and chair debate. So maybe I'll do a separate something or other after that.
Well, here's a question for you.
Or we could do a wrap up for ELL, maybe something.
Yeah, we
along
can do a
those
wrap
lines. I'm
up.
not
But
trying to
one
produce
more
your show for
one
you,
more
but-
topic, quick, and then let's call it a day. But
Okay, new host.
yeah, better host.
Host who clearly doesn't have to pee as much.
No,
as me.
it's funny. I said this because I was talking to Eric Larson, Doc Eric Larson, our buddy who knows Justin Amash very well. And I wonder though, because there was talk about Amash getting in the race for Libertarian, and I almost
too late.
I question what number it's too late now, but even if he did, it almost seems like that'd be a complete waste of his time. And at this is going to be a referendum on
He really
Trump.
should just
If
try
you
to
hate
become
Trump, you're going
a
to vote
congressman
against him.
again
If
as
you
an
like Trump,
independent.
you're going to vote for him. And libertarians really this election cycle, I think, have no place at the table at all.
Nope.
I think it would be, if anything, next election cycle. If Trump wins again, then it's a brand new world. He cannot keep running. People are going to be furious about Trump's platform and positions. You might have some Democrats that come over because Trump doesn't seem like he's living up to his anti-war message. So there's room for a libertarian candidate to come in and be like, look, I mean, God, if Bernie wins, and obviously shit's going to hit the fan as far as socialism and all that bullshit.
Well, that's if
where
you can get it
libertarian come
implemented.
in.
I actually make the case pretty often that the worst thing on the right to keep and bear arms is to have a Republican-controlled government because then there's no opposition. They
Yeah.
pretend. Same with the national
Yeah.
debt too. They pretend to be opposition when Democrats are in power. And Tom Mullen
course.
was tweeting about this yesterday too. He was basically saying the best is what is he saying? A Democrat president and a Republican Congress.
Right,
is
yeah,
the
exactly.
only thing that creates gridlock.
Yep,
Because
yep.
then Republicans at least pretend to be small government once in a while. But I think, when it comes to having a place at the table, it's always the most important election of our lifetime. And it's like you always have to vote against the Trump or the Obama or for. It's rarely ever for anything positive. And that's why I think it's so important for the Libertarian Party. Just an overall lover of liberty. I want to see more liberty. I think it's really important for the LP to actually inject that message of liberty rather than electability.
You need someone who has the actual passion, not someone that's just running to give a high profile for a book or whatever. They may be raising money for a bunch of campaign staff that they want to pay for 4 months. I'm not saying that happens. I'm just saying that's what happens every time.
Oh, yeah. Is that Weldon? Yeah.
Well, that's Weldon 2 Johnson campaigns.
Clearly.
I mean, essentially, whether or not that's what it was intended, that's what it was. It was a lot more of that than it was an educational campaign.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think any of these people were passionate about the ideas of liberty like even the three of us or most people here are. So I think that LP should at least reflect what hopefully most of its membership is, which are people that are passionate about liberty. Because if you're not, why are you spending your Saturday here at the DoubleTree when it's a beautiful day out and we could all be doing a million other things?
Yeah. But it's also like I want the Libertarians campaign slogan for 2020 to be like, not this year, and just like, let's figure this shit out. Let's build... Let's get more libertarians, and then come back strong in 2024 with a real.
You can pitch
platform,
that
hopefully
later
more
on
people.
tonight.
Yeah, maybe I'll run. No one will investigate
We
me.
won't win, but neither will you.
Yeah, it's like not this year, and then
Is that basically the none of the above vote?
yeah, pretty much, man. I mean, but it's like again coming back to education and likability, and what's going to get us more libertarians converted over the next in this election cycle where there's no chance.
Well, there's also the argument to be made for ballot access. So I've heard Sarwark, for example, talk about this, and it's something I hadn't thought about. I'm like, all education. He's like, but a lot of the down ballot people, they don't get to get their message out as much if they're not even on the ballot.
Right.
So there is something to be said for that as well, and probably something that's outside of my expertise completely.
I mean, you're a political party, so it's not a non-issue. Obviously, ballot access has to be an issue, or else, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But hopefully you could do that while keeping the right message along the way and not just changing your positions to get those ballot access.
yeah, good
Because then
point.
what's the point?
Yeah,
Then
because
there-
if you're changing your message, then
you might want to
people
sell it in a
outside-
different way to certain audiences
Yeah.
in certain areas, but it has to still be the right message.
Yeah.
Well, that seems like a good message to end this little chat on.
All right.
It's a lot longer weekend. I'm going to be doing a lot more here, so it's been fun, gentlemen.
Indeed.
Live long.
And live free.
Bolden doesn't even know our catchphrase. It's so sad.